How many years were you in the newspaper?
I was a member of the newspaper staff for 3 years, my sophomore through my senior years in high school here at Huntley High.
How many years were you an editor?
And I was only an editor for 1 year, and that was my senior year, and I was an editor for the yearbook.
What section did you like writing in most?
My favorite section to write in was the opinions section, because I feel like that was your opportunity to rant and rave as long as you had a solid purpose and you had support to back yourself up. The one that I didn't like to write about would have to be sports. Sorry. It's just, you know, very factual, and for me personally, I kind of find it hard to find that inside story, because I mean, how do you pick just one member of the team and just focus on them?
Does anything stand out about the editors that you worked with?
They were just a wacky group of kids. They loved what they did. They had a passion for it. Many of them went off to college, and they ended up being journalist majors, writing for their college newspapers and working on college publications and the like. So they loved what they did, and that enthusiasm, I think they brought that to us as a staff, and that made us want to do a really good job and impress and make them proud.
Do you keep in touch with any of the people that you worked with?
I do. Like I said before, my best friend, Vanessa Lynn, she was my maid of honor in my wedding. I'm friends on Facebook with a lot of them, and we kind of keep in touch every once in a while and get together once a year towards, you know, around the holidays and hang out. So for the most part, I still keep in touch with some of them.
What was the best article that you wrote while you were on staff?
My very first article that I ever wrote had to do something along the lines of finding the perfect homecoming dress, and so I had to go out in the mall and I did some research and compared prices and things, and I handed it in to him, and he told me it was fluff and complete rubbish, and I had to go back and revamp the whole thing, and now looking back on it, it's still pretty pathetic, but I was only a sophomore, I was trying my hardest, and that was that. The best article I wrote would probably have to be the one of my features that I wrote. It was about a girl, her name's Jessica Brown, and her family used to live in the house that was right by that old gas station on the corner of Main and 47.
Yeah.
It caught fire. I believe it was my junior year in high school, and so her family pretty much lost everything, and my story covered kind of her having to deal with that and what they did after the fire, and kind of her perseverance through that tragedy that they were experiencing.
What was the biggest commotion over an article while you were an editor? Do you remember?
I believe it was my junior year. Every year we did the feature article where every member of the staff had to focus on a specific person. And in that particular feature article, there were a lot of really complicated and really intense issues that we were choosing to cover, and some of the administration did not like that. And they ended up telling us we had to revamp the entire issue and cut out articles and move them to different issues or not cover them at all. And one of the topics happened to be teenage suicide, I know, and that was of concern. There were 2 articles about that, and there was 2 articles about kids dropping out, you know, selecting not to get their high school diploma, and they felt that there was just too much negative and not enough positive, and so they wanted a little bit more balance.
Were there any big events in the school while you were an editor?
There was a huge story being covered my senior year. That was my junior and senior year. It started my junior year, but my senior year was definitely when the issue of the mascot was starting to change. And as Redskin fans, we were just so distraught over that. We couldn't believe that they were going to be taking away our mascot. I was a part of the class that graduated as a Red Raider.
What was the best part of being in the class?
Best part of being in the class? I think the best part of being in the class was simply when the newspaper came out on a monthly basis. I think there's nothing cooler than working your butt off, getting your ads in, working for the coffee shop to make your quota, getting your interviews, preparing your article, editing your article, working so hard all month, and then to see that product and kids reading it and teachers yelling at kids to put the newspapers away, but they want to read it and people want to see what you have written. I think there's nothing, you know, that makes you more proud than that feeling of accomplishment.
How has the class impacted you today?
Mr. Brown kind of has this go-get-'em attitude, and I think that before I was in the class, I was a little more on the reserve side, a little more on the quiet side, and he's instilled a lot of lessons in all of us that, you know, you can't just sit around and let life pass you by. You have to go out and make what you want to happen. And so that's what I think all of us did, whether it was myself coming back here and teaching at my alma mater, or it was my girlfriends going into the city and they are now working for prestigious advertising companies, or Katie Royal, who happened to be on the staff with us, and she now writes for a newspaper. You know, there's just so many of us who went out and we did what he told us to do. You need to go after your dreams, and I think that's a really cool thing.
What was the best experience with being an editor?
Best experience with being an editor was definitely not at the very end for yearbook, because everything comes to a head at the end of the year. You know, my senior year I decided to be editor, and all that hard work comes at the very end, when all you want to do in May is just kind of hang out with your buddies and say your goodbyes, because you're all going to be splitting up. But the best thing about being an editor was probably just seeing my growth personally with my interactions with other people and learning how to take more of a leadership role. I really hadn't had the opportunity to do much of that. So to be in charge of something as important as the yearbook, where I was in charge of people's memories, you know, I think that was a really cool aspect of that part of the job.
Did you guys take any trips while you were on staff?
We only went to Iowa, and I only went to Iowa my senior year when I was part of the yearbook editor, so there really wasn't.
What was the best part about that? Do you remember?
We did win a lot of awards when we were in Iowa for our articles and for our paper, and we had taken samples and we brought it there, and we had received a lot of awards. Being an editor my senior year, it's just a different world, a different perspective than when you're on staff. So I kind of got to see, like, we're actually doing a good job here. We're winning awards, and whether it be for photography or the actual writing itself, I mean, we walked away with a boatload of awards, and I think Mr. Brown was just as astonished as we all were. So that was neat to see that aspect.
Okay. What do you think of the paper now? How is it different?
Well, aside from size, the paper is very different in that I think that you guys have so many more opportunities out there to cover all these different stories. You guys have a huge clientele now. There was only 171 graduating seniors in my graduating class, so you know, roughly around 500 kids in the school total, and you are all at 500 kids just with your senior classes. So to have all these stories walking around here, I think that is definitely a bonus for you guys. So
What do you think about the website?
I love the website. I think that the website is such a cool idea. I think it's very ambitious because from what I understand, you guys cover stories like in that moment. So something breaks and you have to go out there and take pictures and report on it, and boom, there it goes. So I think it's so cool, especially if you guys are wanting to go into that field, because you get that immediate experience. Whereas for me, we didn't have that opportunity. We didn't have the programs that you all have now to create these websites and put the news out there for your viewers. But now they can go on the HuntleyVoice.com, and there you are.
Do you incorporate the newspaper into your class at all?
I do. I take bits of articles, you know, things that are going on, and we break it down and we talk about the structure and we talk about quotes, and they talk about things that they would have done and things that maybe they would have changed. So I use it as a learning experience for my classes as well.
Do you use any of Mr. Brown's lessons at all when you teach?
I do. I steal a lot of things from Mr. Brown. He is a very intelligent man, and he has worked so hard for his curriculum, and I think that's the highest compliment that a teacher can give another teacher, is when we call it stealing, but really I'm borrowing some of his ideas and some of his things, because he has worked his butt off since he came here to create this.
Are there any words of advice from Mr. Brown that have stuck with you throughout the years?
I think like I said before, the biggest advice that Mr. Brown gave us was just to get up and go live your life, go after your dreams, you know, do everything that you can, and it'll come to you. It just takes patience and hard work.